Luciana was a young reporter with a single goal: to uncover the truth behind the celebrity glamour. Growing up in a small town, she had always had an idealized vision of what it meant to be famous. On social media, the lives of celebrities seemed perfect: luxurious dinners, exotic trips, radiant smiles. It was the dream of anyone growing up in the midst of social media consumption, where image seemed to be the most valuable currency. But Luciana no longer wanted to look only at the edited photos and well-curated posts. She wanted to go beyond, behind the scenes, to understand what really happened behind the scenes, and whether the happiness so visible was, in reality, as authentic as it seemed. With the approval of her editor, Luciana embarked on an investigation that led her to interview several celebrities and people close to them. Her first stop was Vanessa, a successful actress who loved sharing her glamorous life with her followers. "It's wonderful to be able to live this life, but no one can imagine what I do to maintain this image," Vanessa revealed, during an intimate conversation over coffee. The actress explained that although she seemed to always be smiling and surrounded by friends, she spent days alone at home, consumed by the pressure to always look impeccable. She mentioned how the testimonials and criticism on social media affected her deeply, leading her to develop destructive habits to deal with the stress. "The weight of perfection is overwhelming," she said, with a weary expression. As Luciana continued her investigations, she came across the reality of other celebrities. Many, like Vanessa, found themselves trapped in a vicious cycle of acting out, where their personal lives were sacrificed for the sake of their public image. She found that most of them were deeply isolated, without a true circle of support, and many turned to substances to deal with the pressure. Luciana began to question to what extent fame was really worth it. In a conversation with an assistant to a pop singer, he revealed that his boss was constantly invaded by unrealistic expectations created by brands and the public. He can no longer distinguish what is real from everything that is fabricated. He is losing track of who he really is, he said, visibly distressed. Luciana realized that the shadow of fame was darker than anyone could have imagined. Behind the scenes at parties and rehearsals, glamour was often replaced by loneliness, anguish, and addictions, fueled by incessant pressure. When talking to a famous digital influencer who had reached the height of his popularity, she was confronted with an even crueler reality. You have to be who the public expects, not who you are. If they like you, great. If not, what do? It's just another way of being discarded, he said, with a tone of desperation in his voice. Luciana realized that this kind of life was not only inhumane, but also unsustainable. Luciana was determined to expose the truth behind the celebrity facade. In a meeting with her editor, she presented an outline of her investigation, but the response was blunt. "You know the public doesn't want to know that, right? They want to know the gossip, the clothes, the trips. Nobody cares about what goes on behind the scenes." But Luciana knew that what she was uncovering was much more important. She wanted to tell a story that would touch people, that would show the price of fame. But her editor's words echoed in her mind, creating a nagging doubt. Is the public ready to hear this? In one of her most revealing interviews, Luciana met a former celebrity who had stepped away from the spotlight. "I was the sensation of the moment. Everyone wanted my photo. They wanted to know everything about my life," she said, now living anonymously in a small town in the countryside. "I thought I was happy, but you lose yourself in the process. Every day was a new pressure, a new expectation." She explained how marketing companies and agencies manipulated her image, controlling every aspect of her life. You start to wonder if you are still yourself, or if you have become just a brand. And the worst thing is that, when you feel lost, no one helps you. People want more and more, and when you can't take it anymore, they discard you. As Luciana dug deeper into the story, she was confronted with a reality that shocked her even more. Substance abuse was not just an escape from stress, but also a tool used by the celebrity industry to keep celebrities functioning under constant pressure. "It doesn't matter how exhausted, tired, or sad you are. You have to keep going because the contract won't wait," another celebrity assistant told me. Luciana was shocked to discover that many of the remedies and wellness tips promoted by these public figures were, in fact, temporary solutions that fueled a vicious cycle of consumption and mental exhaustion. The glamour of the perfect life was underpinned by something much darker. Disillusioned with her view of the world of celebrities, Luciana began to question her own profession. The media, she realized, also had its role in this system, selling illusion, feeding the public's desire for something that did not exist. She began to realize that fame was a great spectacle that worked in the same way as social media, behind the scenes, a daily battle of self-sabotage and adaptation. When she began to question the very principles of the industry, she realized that many fellow journalists were more concerned with the financial gains generated by clicks and audience than with the real stories and the harm caused to these people. Luciana was reaching a point of no return. She knew that the revelations she was making could destroy careers and expose the rotten system that sustained the public life of celebrities. But she also knew that it was the only way to bring to light a truth that could change the way the public consumed fame. She began reaching out to more former celebrities, people who, for fear of retaliation, had never spoken openly about their experiences. In her interviews, it was clear that the pressure to stay relevant was never ending. "I was living a lie," confessed one former television star. "In front of the cameras, everything was perfect. But behind the scenes, I could no longer tell what was real. The carefully crafted images, the immaculate Instagram posts, and the constant search for fan approval were just the surface." Luciana began to discover the sacrifices celebrities made to maintain this lifestyle. A famous singer who always flaunted his luxurious life on social media told a secret interview that he spent sleepless nights, woke up exhausted, and felt unable to relax. "I am a slave to my image," he said with a sigh of despair. "Every time I post something, I feel a little further away from who I really am." Youth and beauty were commodities, and he was being consumed by them. The story Luciana was beginning to piece together wasn't just about celebrities. It was about a system that worked at the expense of people's mental and emotional health. The entertainment industry, along with the brands that sponsored the celebrities, was building a relentless machine, a giant wheel of consumption and appearance. For many, this meant living a life that wasn't theirs, struggling to maintain a flawless public image. Luciana began to question the very motives of the fans who followed these influencers. Do they truly understand the price they're paying, or are they just trapped in an illusion? She knew her investigation would not be well received. In fact, it could be a fatal blow to her career. As the investigation deepened, Luciana began to face increasing pressure. She received veiled threats from lawyers and public relations agents trying to silence her findings. She knew she was stirring up a hornet's nest, but to her surprise, she also received support from some figures outside the mainstream media's radar, therapists, psychologists, and other mental health professionals who recognized the negative impact of fame on people. "We as a society need to start looking at what we are actually doing to these individuals," said one psychologist, who agreed to be interviewed anonymously. "Fame is not glamour, it is a prison." The journalist was in a dilemma. The weight of the truth she was carrying on her shoulders was beginning to affect her own mental health. She knew that exposing this story could result in a violent backlash from the industry, and the possibility of losing her job, or even being banned from the news circuit, was a palpable reality. However, when talking to a former model who had distanced herself from social media and the life of fame, Luciana realized that the consequences for the mental health of celebrities were much deeper than she imagined. "I lost friends. I lost my own identity. All I wanted was to escape the mirror and the expectations," the woman reported, with tears in her eyes. The former model had been another victim of what Luciana now saw as a true industry of soul consumption. This conversation was a turning point for Luciana. She could no longer allow herself to have doubts about her work. The truth had to come out. She dedicated herself tirelessly, interviewing more sources and collecting evidence of manipulation by big brands and PR agencies. She discovered that celebrities were often forced to participate in marketing campaigns for products they themselves did not use or even hated in exchange for a semblance of status and success. This constant pressure to sell a perfect, albeit false, image was undermining the emotional and psychological health of many of them. Each step of the journey felt more difficult, but also more necessary. During one of her meetings with a famous celebrity who had struggled with substance abuse and the pressure to maintain a perfect body, Luciana was warned about the risks she was taking. The former reality TV icon, who had been exposed by several scandals, said with a sincerity that touched Luciana deeply, "I've been where you are, wanting to expose the lie, but be careful of the enemies you'll make along the way. When you threaten an empire, it doesn't fall without fighting back." The celebrity's words echoed in Luciana's mind as she walked back to her office. She knew there was no turning back. The only question was, would she be able to handle the repercussions? But as hard as it was, Luciana decided to move forward. She knew that most people were still blind to the reality of celebrity life, seeing only the glamour and material goods, without realizing the emotional price paid behind it. She knew that most fans didn't want to hear the truth, because it would mean questioning the very basis of the cult of celebrity. What she didn't realize was that her story would only be the beginning of a larger revolution. Her articles began to generate a wave of discussion on social media, and soon, the public began to question the morality of all the industries involved in manufacturing perfection. This was no longer about individual celebrities. It was about a corrupt system and a society willing to pay the price for an illusion. As her articles grew in popularity, Luciana found herself in a new position. She was now a symbol of resistance against the lies of social media and the facade of fame. However, with recognition came threats. Anonymous messages began to appear, and she began to notice an increase in the number of suspicious followers on her social media. It was clear that someone, or something, was trying to silence her. One day when she arrived home, she found a sealed envelope on her doorstep. Inside was a photo of herself, taken without her consent, in which she was in a personal and vulnerable moment. The handwritten message read, "Fame can be dangerous, but you still don't know what is truly dangerous." This threat, albeit indirect, left Luciana uneasy, but also more determined. Luciana decided she wasn't going to be intimidated. She knew that if she wanted to continue her investigation, she would have to be more strategic. She sought out a lawyer who specialized in privacy rights and began to shield her personal information. During this time, she reached out to a group of former PR agents who were willing to share their experiences with her. These former professionals explained how they were often the ones who controlled the celebrity narrative, fabricating scandals and even manipulating the mental health of influencers to ensure their careers remained lucrative. "We created the monsters of the media," said one of them, making no bones about her guilt. The confession was a turning point for Luciana, as it reinforced the toxic nature of the industry she was delving into. With the help of her new contacts, Luciana was able to access confidential documents and recordings from major celebrity agencies. She obtained evidence of how certain problematic behaviors were encouraged, or even orchestrated, to create the overcoming narrative that sold products and events. In one recording, a fashion executive discussed how important it was for a celebrity to be seen in public in an emotionally vulnerable state in order to ensure sales of products related to their recovery. Luciana was horrified to realize how an entire industry was profiting from human weaknesses. Her outrage, however, was the fuel that kept her in her search for the truth. With all this in hand, Luciana was ready to write the article that would shake up the fame industry. She knew it wouldn't be easy. She also knew she would face powerful enemies. But after reading the testimonies of people like the former model and the former reality TV icon, she knew that the story needed to be told. She began writing, and her narrative spared no one. She detailed the farce of perfection, the psychological isolation, and the addictions imposed by unattainable expectations. Her article went viral. It wasn't long before influential figures in the industry began responding with personal attacks and attempts to discredit her. Despite the pressure, Luciana didn't let herself be shaken. She received support from many of her fellow journalists, as well as celebrities who were willing to talk about the difficulties they faced in silence. But the story didn't end there. At that moment, something even bigger was beginning to take shape. A wave of former celebrities, influencers, and media professionals began to reveal their own traumas and challenges faced in the name of fame. Many joined Luciana, creating a support network for those who wanted to rebuild their lives away from the pressures of social media and the entertainment industry. As the story unfolded, Luciana realized that her work was not just an investigation, but a movement. The glamour of fame, once seen as everyone's ultimate goal, was slowly being questioned. Social media began to be seen in a new light, no longer as a platform for aspiration, but as a distorted reflection of reality. For Luciana, the price of fame, while always high, had never been more evident than now. She had exposed the truth, but the real question was, to what extent would the public be willing to let go of their own illusions to see the raw reality?